is 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And folks, I am Gail Birks, your host for this month's The Readiness Factor. And just before we started this show, it occurred to me that we have been doing these shows for 2 years. For those of you who are just joining us, the Readiness Factor is my thank you to all of you for supporting us for over 35 years at CMA Enterprise Incorporated, my company, and being able to provide excellent performance and process improvement services to business and industry for 3 decades has been our grateful ministry that we have been able to provide you out there. And this has helped us go to the next level where we share tidbits of information to entrepreneurs, leaders in business and industry, and just people who want to get better insight out there in terms of personal and professional living. So thank you for joining us today. And this month's show is no exception. I've got a gentleman who has known me probably a lot longer than I knew he walked the earth. I want to bring to the show and welcome to the show, Mr. Earl Stanley. And I'm going to try to do this before my eyes start to water and I start to waver. But I want to let you know that Earl is my brother from another. And he is located in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. But right now, as you can see, maybe in the picture that I'll show you in just a moment, he's now in the Virgin Islands with family. But Earl is a lifelong student and teacher rooted in the traditions of martial arts, which brings about a life discipline beyond the self-defense, folks. Business and community service. With over 40 years of dedication to the martial arts profession and discipline, Earl has trained in 3 powerful disciplines: Taekwondo, Hapkido, and Tai Chi. In addition to his mastery in martial arts, Earl has also built a thriving career in real estate for over 35 years. As a trusted broker and small business owner, he has helped more than 800 families and individuals navigate the purchase and sale of homes, investment properties, and businesses. His integrity, and he does have it, folks. He has worked and served my family for years. And personal commitment have earned him lasting trust in the community. Earl is more than a professional. He's a village mentor and a community pillar, known for his wisdom, grounded essence, and willingness to guide others. Above all, Earl is a proud son, brother, cousin, uncle, husband, father, grandfather, and friend. And like I said earlier, he is my brother from another. And I want to bring to the chat room of the Readiness Factor, ladies and gentlemen, my friend, Earl Stanley. Earl, welcome, 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 my dear. Welcome.
Thank you so much, and good afternoon to everybody. It's an honor for me to be here. And when Gail first asked me to come on the show, I said, well, why does she want to talk to me? Our conversations are private. So I guess this private conversation will be aired, and I'm just looking forward to having some fun.
Yeah, and we always do. And I want to tell you folks that today we are going to be talking about building our legacy, however that's defined, but basically starting from that point of know where you came from to shape where you are going. And Earl, tell us a little bit more about you, from whence you've come, where you are now, and where you're going.
Okay. So right now, I'm visiting my mom and dad in St. Croix, Virgin Islands. And it's an honor to come here and spend time with them. I just turned 60, so to me, being 60 years old and having both my parents alive is the best gift ever. Right now, I have been in real estate and martial arts, and that's pretty much my life. So if you want to know where I am, on Tuesdays, Thursdays, Wednesdays, and Saturdays, I'm doing Tai Chi and Taekwondo, Hapkido, and then the rest of the week, I am doing real estate. I like it's amazing how both disciplines complemented each other from the foundational aspect. You have to have, I don't really like to say time management, but you have to make everything an appointment. So what happened early on is, as I was doing both, sometimes I have appointments run into class time. So what I had to do is set up a schedule. So between 3 o'clock and 7 o'clock on Tuesdays, I wouldn't have any appointments. And then after that, I'll have appointments because it keeps the insanity from overwhelming you. So that's one of the things I thought about. When Gail posed the question to me about generational wealth and stuff like that, the first thing I thought about is, before you even talk about generational wealth, you have to know your story. You have to know where you come from. And so it was important to always remember your story, not somebody else's, but let's say, for me, let's say on my mom's side, I know that my mother lost her parents, her mom when she was 7 and her father when she was 11. And so my mom lived on a large estate in the island of Antigua. Back then they were rich. They had 4 maids, they had a cook, they had it all. And so a couple of years ago, I was able to go back and see the land that my grandfather owned. And it was enough land to have at least 50 houses on it. That's how big it was. And so when my wife was with me, she saw the land and she said, well, who does she have to marry to get the land back? But back then, because her older siblings weren't astute as to the business practices of the day, they lost everything. And so in our effort to correct some of those things, that's why knowing the story is important of your family. So a lot of times you don't see the background of, you see the finished product, but you don't see the seeds that were sown into the people way back when. And so this time I was home and my mom was looking at the picture of her older sister and her aunt. And those are the 2 people that sold into her. Her aunt put her through private school, which was Catholic school at the time on the island. And then her older sister sacrificed her own personal happiness to raise the younger 3 children. So me knowing that makes me appreciate everything that my mom has ever done for me. So that's why the story is so important.
Mm-hmm. And we have to all, regardless of the culture, we've got to do a better job of telling that story, just that. I know the last time my grandkids came to visit me, I've got a book about my dad on the cocktail table in my living room. And they were like, who is this? Tell me about this person. And then I have some African masks, and they are named after my mom and dad. And so giving them the story and then having them say good morning to the elders every morning and tell the story as they're saying good morning is something that has helped to get them to understand just where they came from, and giving them the story about who I am, their immediate grandmother. So, that's a huge piece to understanding whether we had it and what happened to it if we didn't keep it. Let me add in, because we've got some questions regarding the martial arts piece. Now that's something you and I both have in common. And I know when my dad put us, my sisters and I, in martial arts, initially, because he had all girls, it was to make sure we knew how to protect ourselves. But
Absolutely.
as I have grown into an adult and now a mature woman, I have been able to take those skills, the mental skills that you learn in the martial arts, and it has helped me to be more intentional, not only in my personal life, but in the business side as well. I push this over to you in terms of that question, in terms of what are the lessons that you can share with our audience as to how that martial arts discipline that you have acquired been helpful to you in business and life, especially when it's to creating that legacy and that generational wealth that we're talking about today.
Okay. But first of all, in our martial arts school, we start with the oath, so the oath basically says, I shall observe the tenets of Taekwondo. I shall respect my instructors and seniors. I shall never misuse Taekwondo. I should be a champion for freedom and justice. I shall build a more peaceful world. And the aims are courtesy, integrity, perseverance, self-control, and downward spirit. So when you look at that piece alone and you analyze it, that's all you really need to follow, because anytime you get off track, you go back to the oath or the aims, and it can ground you back into how you conduct yourself. You get tried daily, but once you think about those tenets, you get back on track. As far as martial arts is concerned, now I'm older, martial arts has a total different meaning for me. When I first started, it was about self-defense. But now I'm older, I'm more into Tai Chi. It's more of a way of life. It's how you conduct yourself, how you treat other people, and how you keep bad things away from you, So it helps you have better discernment, helps you make better decisions, who to be around, who not to be around. So and it's good for children and adults. So when children are first getting into it, they want to, I call this the first stage. They want to learn how to fight and protect themselves. In our school, I tell them, your goal is to never get in an altercation, okay? And so the number one defense that I teach is avoidance, okay? So if you avoid conflict, you don't have to worry about it. Then as you go through the stages of martial arts, you get your first belt, your second belt, and you start nurturing your talents. But as you're nurturing your talents, you're also nurturing your mind. Mm-hmm. And so from that nurturing comes more discernment and more critical thinking skills, which is very important in business, also in martial arts, knowing when to strike, when to pause, when to move yourself away. Mm-hmm. So those type of things allow you to mature as a person while you're doing the martial arts. Mm-hmm. After you become a black belt, sometimes, you feel that, oh, I'm a black belt. Well, no. When you become a black belt, it comes with more responsibility.
Yeah.
Because we are in a litigative society. You can get sued for hurting somebody. That's why I said the first thing is avoidance and allowing critical thinking skills to take place versus emotion. Mm-hmm. So that's what I say the martial arts has helped me a lot, is to make better decisions based on logic versus emotion. And all of us have made emotional decisions that paid for it.
Yes.
So
this is a whole other show, though. That's a whole other show.
Okay. So I don't know if that answers the question, but we can elaborate.
And one of the things I'm hearing also is some of the characteristics and the steps that you have shared also have translated, and I can't speak for my audience, but I know they have truly translated for me into my business life and the disciplines of how I conduct myself or not, for instance, like when I am creating that legacy or building that relationship, the approach or not to approach, the avoidance, the walk away, the interaction, the level of those things that you mentioned are some of the same things I do when I am in business situations, good, bad, and otherwise. And, it doesn't mean I've got to go into physical form, but the mental aspect of working the forms kicks in.
Yes.
And that is how powerful these disciplines are. And when it comes to building my legacy, I know with my company and just living out here, that has truly helped me in terms of building the nest eggs, building the investments, the discipline of it, the intentionality. I just made that word up. We just have to look it up later. The intentionality of it all, and the other piece is patience, because you have totally observed
Yes.
your environment. It makes you so much more aware of the energy that is either entering or rapidly exiting the environment, your immediate environment. And I know those are some of the things that I have encountered just knowing this discipline.
Well, Gail, one of the things I would also add is that being a student is more important than being a master of something.
Right.
And so every day, tell my students, I'm just a white belt. And they say, what do you mean? I say, well, I'm always learning. I learn from you, I learn what to do, what not to do, and how to do it better. So it's called refinement. And
right.
So in the process of understanding the fundamentals, as you continue to refine, you get better. And sometimes you get to a point where you plateau. Mm-hmm. And you think it's not working, but a lot of times we have to stay on the plateau before we can actually take off again. And exactly, I show everybody is trying to lose weight, and I'm gonna go there. And so your body says, you said, oh, I want to lose 50 pounds, and you start going good, and then your body says, hold up, let's make sure that this is what we really want to do. So it starts holding on to stuff to protect itself.
Right.
Same concept. Yeah.
Right. I've got a couple of questions for you, but I've got some other inquiries that have come in from our audience in LinkedIn. And this is a loaded question. Okay. What's been your proudest accomplishment so far and why?
Oh boy, well that's
especially when it comes to building your legacy.
The proudest there's a couple. You start with, father, grandfather. Grandfather is special than father. They both, so they're not in the same category. They're different.
Yeah.
The proudest accomplishment I would say is when I see a student comes in knowing nothing. Mm-hmm. And you get to contribute to mold and shape them into something that they didn't even think that they could possibly be. And yes. So that's and I just want to give a shout out. I found out this week that one of our students, who is also an Eagle Scout and a black belt, just got accepted to Harvard doing neurosurgery. He's going to start this fall, Mr. James Hightower. So, yeah.
Unbelievable. Shout out to Mr. James Hightower.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
So I would say that's the biggest accomplishment, seeing somebody come in with no knowledge of what they want to do. And when you have a chance to see them accomplish the finished product, which is another beginning, because we never finish. We reach to one level, and then we plateau, and then we go to a higher level.
Right.
And then
right.
we plateau again, and we keep going higher and higher to infinity. It doesn't end.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, that is just so on point when you talk about building generational wealth. And folks, it's not always about the dollars.
Exactly.
The generational wealth is knowledge and opportunity, you know, and it comes from that whole community building. I'm gonna cry. I am, folks. You know me. I'm mush. I'm a cry. When it comes to my proudest accomplishment, it was the legacy I'm sorry, folks.
You're doing great. You're doing great. You're doing great.
Was the legacy my dad had created as a community father, and the dojo that now belongs to Earl.
Well, I would say I always tell everybody that I'm a placeholder, meaning that I came in at the right time. I'll tell you how this happened, actually, if I could tell that story real quick. So my children were in a different type of activity, and I wanted to start them in karate, you know, and then I was in church one Sunday, and that's the first time I've seen in the bulletin, it says Anvil Karate Club.
Right.
And I'm like, Anvil Karate Club? They say, yeah. I said, who teaches that? They say, oh, Mr. Birks sitting over there. I said, oh. So I went and introduced myself to him, and I started bringing the children. And then as I started bringing the children, he said, well, you look like you used to train before.
Yeah.
And I said, yes. He said, would you like to come and start training again? And I said, well, if I come in again, I want to learn the way you do it so that I can understand how to assist you and make your school better. And that's when I met Master Birks. My other instructor at the time was Master Greg Smith and Master Mean Allen.
Right.
And my good buddy Jay Mitchell, him and I came in together, and we just started growing. And you know, and so my thing was, when I saw, because I knew Master Birks, I knew everything that him and Mrs. Birks had done to make the school better. So when I took over the school, one of the things I always say when I come into the door, if Master Birks walked in here today, would he be pleased knowing that I didn't just leave it, but I improved on it? And so my goal is to always keep improving on what he left us. And so when we talk about legacy, we just can't, you know, we have to know the story, number one. We have to know the purpose behind the story. Otherwise, when you give somebody something that they don't know what it's about, then they lose it. There's no connection there. So because I know the story, every day I go to the dojo, I'm thinking of ways to make it better. You know, I'm thinking of, and every time I have a seminar, I'm like, oh boy, Master Birks would have loved it, you know. So and up to this day, it's still, you know, when we say our oath, it's still Master Carl Birks, because it's his foundation. I know people say, oh, it's your school. No, it's not. It's, you know, so, but
it is, and thank you for that, because that let me collect myself. But you know, I am that human, that person. But I think the proudest moment that I had was when the legacy that he had taken, with the help of others in the community like yourself, and he prepared you, and I knew of you before we actually met face to face, and vice versa. But I knew that you were his inheritance. I knew that you were his heir apparent. I knew. I didn't say anything, but I knew. And when my mom literally said, "It is yours," and then when you and I had that conversation, and one of the things I knew, he had prepared you for it, and two, he loved you like a son, because
Yes, indeed.
you
Yeah.
were his son, you are his son, and knowing that, it was so interesting that a lot of times in families, when people inherit a legacy, um, they oftentimes need permission to make it theirs. And I'll
Yeah.
never forget the conversation that we had when you were concerned about injecting your ideas and your vision for the school. And I said one thing to you: he gave it to you. It is now yours. Make it yours. And you did. And it wasn't like you didn't know you could, but sometimes folks, when we inherit something, sometimes we just need to let somebody know, or we need somebody to let us know that it is okay,
Yes.
that it is yours now. If he didn't want you to have it, he wouldn't have given it to you.
That is true.
So it is, that was one of the proudest moments of my life, because in many instances, legacies, especially in our communities that have been built with blood, sweat, tears, and lots of love, they die when the founder and the owner of that legacy passes on, because nobody is there to take it on. So
Yes.
I was so grateful, and that was one of my greatest moments, to know that there was somebody there who loved it as much as he did, enough to take it on and build it in the next chapter and level. And folks, that's what we have to do. One of the things we haven't talked about, because we both got into that martial arts, is the real estate piece. That real estate, for many people, seems to be the most traditional way to acquire generational wealth. And we're seeing a lot of communities that are traditionally monocultural
Mhm.
be diluted or eliminated, because people are not maintaining that historical generational wealth in those
Well,
properties.
well,
Talk a little bit more about that.
okay. So just picking up on what you just said, it goes back to the story. When I went to church at St. Mark's, when I still go, I sought out a lot of the older generation that made the trip during the Great Migration. Okay. So Black folks aren't really from Milwaukee. They're
Right.
from someplace else. They're from
Mississippi,
Louisiana,
Alabama,
they're from
Louisiana,
Texas.
Texas.
And so a lot of the older people that I spoke to, I wanted to know, well, what it took for them to get up and leave, and why did they leave, and kind of understanding that, so I could relate to them and build a relationship. Because if you're not building a relationship, then it doesn't really matter. So I took time to really say, okay, because I didn't know about Alabama, Mississippi, I didn't know some of the things that they went through.
Yeah.
And when they broke it down, you would understand really why they did some of the things they did, why they thought the way they did, and how we could move forward. So in order to move forward, you kind of have to understand where the person, like a point of reference, if that makes sense, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So it taught me a lot about, I learned more history talking to them than I would in college or a book. And so
Absolutely.
that's what I would employ young people, is to, if you have an older person that's living with you, somebody that's at your church or your community center, spend some time with them and talk to them about what it was like when, where they came from, whether, country, what was it like to, I remember I spoke to a gentleman, his name is Johnny Milton. He's still alive, Mr. Milton.
Yeah, Mr.
Mr.
Milton.
Milton explained to me that when he bought his first house, a Jewish person had to buy it for him because he couldn't buy it at the time.
Yes.
And being in real estate, that was kind of, but I understood why.
Yeah.
And so when young people understand what is given to them and the purpose and the sacrifices and some of the things that their ancestors had to go through, immediate ancestors had to go through to bring all this stuff together, I think is very important to sit down and one of the things I did, my wife and I did, is when our children were younger, they came and spent time with my parents in the Virgin Islands for all summer. And I remember your daughter, Courtney, coming up and spending time with mom and dad. And so there has to be that connection between the generations. And with the young people, when they start hearing these stories, they'll get a better perspective on how to nurture and take care of what was given to them, but also take it to another level.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So that's the point I was trying to make. The relationship has to be built from an early stage, you know. And so as the relationship continues to grow and manifest itself, it will continue to bear fruit. And so when that happens, then they in turn are going to do it with their children and grandchildren. And that's how the real wealth building, I think, takes place, through those stories and understanding what everybody. Now, the money thing, there's all these apps and different things, you know, we use to fix. But the relationship part of it, the AI doesn't tell you how to do that. Yeah. And I think we're the ones that have to make it even today, my mom was telling me that she appreciates the time getting to know my two daughters because they're like peas in a pod. They're like this, both of them. They're different children, but they're very close to her. Yeah. Which is, so if that didn't take root way back when, you know, and even if you didn't have that relationship way back when, there's still time to make it happen. That's
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, you know, when it comes to our young people, and that was an awesome segue, you know, many of our young people out there now, they're young professionals. The downside of it, many of them are plagued with debt before they even get out here into this world of working and earning a living for themselves. And so I know from a little girl, we always had our piggy banks, and you know, you always had to take some of it and put in your piggy bank. You had to give some of it in your tithe. And then you maybe had a few coins left that you could spend on yourself, but the majority of it went into your savings account. And I know my grandfather was one of the wisest men in the world. He had a 6th grade education, but you couldn't tell him he didn't have 2 PhDs from Harvard. And he would always say, you know, you can have a wonderful lifestyle, but make sure that you have something put away for that rainy day. And you know, that old cliche of keeping up with the Joneses does not necessarily build your legacy for tomorrow. And so it is okay and great to live and build for today, but there's no guarantee that when your elders pass on, there's going to be something left for you. So what is your strategy and plan for building your own legacy while you are here? What kind of tips can you share with our young people, our young listeners who either are tapping in today or are going to listen to this as we go forward?
Well, I would say you could seek out somebody in the community that you think is well off, and just take them to tea or coffee and just say, you know, I'd like to have a conversation with you regarding how you got where you are.
How'd you do it?
And even if you get a rejection, this is important. If you get rejected, I want you to call them again. And if you get rejected, call them again, because a lot of times people don't really want to pour into you unless they know you're serious. And sometimes it takes more than one ask
Yes.
to get where you need to.
Yes.
Not being overly aggressive, but I'm just calling again to see if you have time to go to tea.
Or if you have a moment to talk to me now.
Yeah, and so I would seek out somebody that I would seek out a business person.
Mm-hmm.
And the only reason I say a business person to me has a different mindset than an employee. Not saying one is better than the other, but a business mindset looks at the health of the business. When you have a business, sometimes you have to not eat personally to build the business. And so when you talk to a business person, it's I would say talk to both so you can have a balance. But when you speak to a business person, you get a better perspective of the real world.
Mm-hmm.
And because when you got to make payroll or when you got taxes and all these different things going on, your critical thinking skills have to really take place versus your emotions.
Right.
Business is going to die.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one thing I would say young people should do. Seek out a mentor. It could be somebody in their own house, but somebody that don't necessarily look for the person that has all the bling. The richest people I've ever met in real estate,
you'd never know they had what they have.
I was working with a couple one time, and they were buying this house, and I asked them who they're using for financing. I just assumed that, and so they just smiled at me because they liked me and said, "We're just gonna write a check," and I thought that was powerful. Now I want to piggyback on this piece: generational wealth. In the past 5 years, there's been a lot of baby boom wealth passed down to baby boom children. And so what I've seen is how they do life insurance. And how they do life insurance is you become a product of the trust.
Mm-hmm.
So I've seen people write checks at a closing for $500,000 without taking out a mortgage, without paying an appraiser, without paying anything, because they wrote the check from the family trust. And when they die, that insurance money pays the trust back, and it keeps growing.
Pays the trust back.
And it keeps growing and growing. And so one of the things I think that, and where we need to be different, is develop the relationships so that we can have trust.
Mm-hmm. We did a show on estate planning and trust.
Okay.
Last year. And, I truly invite everybody to go back we have our YouTube channel and find that one with Shoma Deer. And she really spelled it out. And you are right on point with that. Yes, because that is something, and you don't have to be my age or your age to set up a trust. As you acquire assets, you're building your legacy and protecting it as well as you put it into the trusts. And the instructions on how to distribute it, manage it, etc., are laid out in the trust and your estate plan. So those are things that you have to consider. You know what? We have gone a little bit over our time, but I think that this has been such a wonderful time that I always say we can talk all day.
Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
I just want to be able to have people continue the conversation with you, Earl, as we go into our future of continuing to build this legacy. And hopefully we've had some tidbits for our audience that they can do so. And you said you're a live person. You're also on WhatsApp. So folks, this is his phone number that he gave me permission to share with you. And it is, you want to tell him?
Yes. My phone number is 414-405-0427. If you Google me, Earl Stanley, Milwaukee Real Estate, that number will come up. And people say, you give your number? And I say, yeah, because if I don't want to talk to you, I just hang up. It's that simple.
Or you don't pick up at all. And at CMA Enterprise, my information is here. You can always call me. I'm like Earl. I love a live chat. And you please visit our website. We've got other events coming up, and we've got our online class library going on as well, so that you can join us and build your own capability and capacity. So keep us in mind every second Thursday of each month, and join us as we help you move the needle during the Readiness Factor. It's 30 minutes plus a couple more seconds added to it of some insights and change. And ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you once again for joining me and my special guest and my brother from another, Earl Stanley. Thank you so much for joining me and sharing your wisdom. Do you have any final closing comments for us as we say goodbye for another successful show?
Well, first of all, I would like to thank you for allowing me to be part of your program. And Gail is very humble, but if you require business coaching, this is the place to come. She's a Six Sigma teacher who run her own business, so she would be the person to connect to. So I want to say, if you need business coaching, this is the place to be. That's my final comment.
Thank you so much. I love you. I love you. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. And we will see you next month for the Readiness Factor on the second Thursday at 2 p.m. Take care. We'll talk out loud real soon.